Well, this is my place, and using Peter's ideas, I've got a hillside here which has got its hydrology right. There's one set of hydrological details here, which is a almost desert-like bushland, and in the middle it's lush green lawn. So the hydrology's right. There's two other elements. You've got to have the right plants that can deal with the water and perhaps change things to suit themselves a bit. And lastly, sunlight. When you get all of this done, you can have the impossible. In Australia, it basically is not possible to have a lush green lawn next to these sorts of gum trees. Why? Well, if you got it right for the lawn, the gum trees would die. If you got it right for the gum trees, the lawn would die.
Absolutely.
So this is basically your idea. Hydrology is pretty much everything.
Absolutely. Once you sort of have done what you do and go out, look at the landscape, understand that there are processes there, you can come back and reproduce them to your desire, rather than have to worry about, well, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that. And there's one issue. This has to be a filter, grass always is, and something has to produce sunlight. This is not high enough, not tall enough. You imagine how much sunlight a plant 400 feet can convert every day. And this fella never gets big, but he looks green, but we never analyse how much this one's producing against the guy that's those big bushes. Just think how much extra sunlight they make compared to how much this grass makes. And then this grass filters what it makes, and so we get this pattern.
And I suppose the bit that a lot of people, wonderful as Richard Branson is, would have difficulty understanding, and that is that these plants themselves control that hydrology. The water relationships in this ground are manipulated by the plants.
Absolutely. And basically they can alter it, so everything can evolve. If obviously you've got rocks and so on, and somebody like yourself who wants to see something in a native state, in an arid piece of ground, you know how to go about it. And the issue is just that. If you know what the hydrology is doing, if you want to change it, you actually can. But the biggest thing is, in the natural environment, the plants are the ones who change the environment by altering the hydrology. They stop it leaking into the ground, they stop it running away too fast, and they just keep adding more production, and that's how they do it. It's not less production, it's always adding more.
Adding more, and with that, when it's healthy and working really well, it's taking more carbon out of the air and putting it into the soil.
And the biggest issue is, instead of whereas most people think it's going to oxidise away again, no, the Australian landscape had this amazing situation where it kept water and it kept damp areas where that accumulated carbon didn't oxidise away again. It actually was available for the next cycle of growth.
And we should point out that your views, say 10 years ago, science would have gone, this bloke is an utter crazy.
Well, they're still doing it a little bit, Don. It's all right, you've got it through it, but I mean, I'm still sort of crawling up the ladder a little bit, I think. Because, you know, if you tell them that every plant is contributing to productivity, they go, that's mad. You know, but it does.
So this took me to get to this stage 30 years, and I was learning along the way. You've taken a lifetime to get to where you are today. Your formula that you have now for how to run landscapes and so on, and farms and even gardens, with that formula, how long does it take?
One good rain event and a lot of different species of plants, and about 5 months. But once we look at it from a really clinical point of view, 18 months, and you're from a state of really serious decay to a land of profitable productivity.
What I love about your stuff is, even if people are pig ignorant and obstinate, they can follow the recipe and get a result.
Absolutely.
They don't have to understand it.
No, they don't.
The real problem with your theory, and it's a massive one, is that it's counterintuitive.
Yes, it is.
Even though I'd been fiddling with a lot of my stuff, when I first started to read your stuff, I went, uh-oh. And then as I went into it, I realised you'd come up with the same sort of things I had. But it is crazy stuff, isn't it?
You just don't think that water could run on the high ground for any reason. But the plants are there as the engineers. They grow so dense in the hollows that the water can't get through. And they used to grow so high because we have so many hours of sunlight that the water had to go around them, which was the high ground. And then it could leak out of that high ground back and water the area like you're doing here. Between rain events.
It doesn't make sense from, you know, up here you go, so...
Not till you see it working and you go...
It's almost water going uphill, isn't it, in a way?
Well, you would think so.
And the scientists say it can't travel sideways, and I can set up experiments to prove to you that you're wrong, that it won't go sideways. But if it spreads out across the land like you say,
it'll shift itself.
And you get enough pressure and the right plants as well, boom.
Well, You see, you've got a head of water and it's trying to go through the plants. This head of water, as it flattens out, is going to go sideways.
Yeah.
I often say to a person, we've got a flat table in front of us. Can you get water to pile up on the table? And you put it, just dripping it in the middle, and next thing it spreads over the whole table.
Yeah.
It doesn't go down one slope.
Yeah.
We see it every day. This is the problem.
And I'm guessing one of the big applications for your work would be in drier countries like Africa and so on, particularly to feed a lot of the people in those areas where perhaps they're currently starving.
Absolutely. The potential. And I always try to say, let's see Australia before human interference. And it had megafauna, fruit trees right across. Lake Eyre was a freshwater lake. This is provable stuff. It's not something we should be arguing about. Today we've got the technology to absolutely say, yeah, that's exactly what it was. Then it's only 40,000 years ago or somewhere in that range. And the climate's changed. This continent's moved about 2 feet in that time. No one's put a blanket over the sun that I know of. So what happens? We know as soon as we take plants out, I know because I lived in a good landscape and 3 hours later I was in a desert, and the change, let me tell you, you have to live there to realise. Those things put an awareness in my mind to go, don't listen to this stuff, you know. There are things we need to understand.
There are, and maybe if we were to rename our species, it might be Homo deserticus, because we desertified
Absolutely, everywhere.
half the bloody world.
Absolutely.
If your theory works in a lot of these other countries, we could re-green areas that are currently in real trouble.
And in truth, if just 30% of the agricultural people took up what they could learn from the Australian landscape, we could be pre-industrial carbon levels in 10 years. Just 30% of agriculture.
Gee whiz.
And that's absolute fact.
And Richard, if you're paying attention to this, remember not that many years ago you were that rat bag working on Virgin Records and so on, and you've changed the world. Every so often, rat bags that have a different way of looking at things are terribly important, and sometimes the scientists are not very important. This rat bag here is very important.
Well, thank you, Don, but we'll make it happen together as well, you know. It's not going to be something that any individual will do. The one lesson I've learned in 40 years is that an individual is almost powerless. The bigger the team, and it needs to be a champion team, not a team of champions. And that's where we're all headed, I hope. And in the next few years, that champion team will make a difference to the planet.
And in case you're wondering, his name is Colin, and he's a cavoodle. That's half Cavalier King Charles Spaniel and half miniature poodle. Colin,